Welcome in, everybody. This is Chris Landry, and this is Pac 12 Football and Beyond. Hope you're having a great Wednesday, already middle of the week, hump day, I guess, as they call it. We're excited, is always excited during football season. I know you are. I am as well. I'm no different. Not a, I don't look and prepare for these games from a fan viewpoint, but I do love the game and get excited. That's probably similar to the way fans get excited. We are got a lot going on over at LandryFootball.com. A lot going on prepared for this show. We're going to break down each and every game for you from this past weekend. Kind of give you the landscape as we do on all of these conference shows of how things stand in the conference. How do they look? Anybody other than Oregon is a real threat. What about Oregon? How do they look against Arizona? How does the rest of the league stack up? Try to put in national context. It's an opportunity every day to talk college football on the variety of shows that we have here. So we encourage you that even if you're maybe not a fan of the Pac 12, this is a way to get involved, learn more about what we do here at LandryFootball.com. And again, I encourage everyone to join us in the chat room. And again, there's a reason why we call the show Pac 12 Football and the Beyond. Next hour, Big 12 football and beyond, SEC football and beyond, Big 10 football and beyond, ACC football and beyond. Why? Because the beyond is always in play. Always bring your questions. Heck, you can even bring some NFL stuff in. Whatever you would like, you can bring to the table here in the chat room, and we will address it in the mailbag section. But we like to give each conference their due and a certain level of thoroughness that's going to allow us a chance to kind of go in depth. A couple of things that I want to remind you about: the detailed film room breakdowns from this past week, as well as the previews for this week, all on LandryFootball.com. Take advantage of the football season sale. I think those. I think that if you take a look at all the games and you get a preview for what's happening, why it's happening, um, that gives you a good feel for what has taken place to this point and what we can take from that game. Because one of the things that I think is missed is Team A is better than Team B. So if we're now playing that styles, matchups matter greatly. So we'll bring that aspect to you and how some things may play out. So LandryFootball.com, we certainly encourage you to take advantage of our membership there. The football season sale is a great one, a great way to get involved. Look, it's as simple as this. It's like having your own scouting department, coaching department for less than a magazine subscription. It's less than $10 a month. It's less than that. If you take advantage of the year membership. So we've got a lot going on there. If you're listening to this podcast, we appreciate it. Sign up wherever you get your podcasts at Pac-12 Football and Beyond. We encourage you to do that, as well as watching us. If you're listening to this, look at what we're doing live. We bring these shows to you live. Join us in the chat room. Go to LandryFootball.com, click follow Chris on Twitch. So we will absolutely get to that. Also want to tell you that we got some great news from our great folks at BetDSI. I'm going to get into some of the big matchups of the weekend overall and then take a look at the games. But I want to address something as, again, we'll usually do it in the mailbag segment. But I want to address Rock Westfall, a good friend, has joined us. What the hell is going on at Navy since 2017? The program on an undeniable downward trend. The AD goes rogue. Has Army cut into their recruiting? Time for a reset? No, let me tell you what's going on. The AD's not going rogue. The issue there with Ivan Jasper was handed down from above. His refusal to get vaccinated remember the academies that comes from Washington. Okay, I mean, it comes from the higher ups in Annapolis, which comes from the higher ups in DC. That was nothing to do. He wasn't stepping into football ops. He was stepping into. He was told to do that. No doubt, Army's gotten better, and that's affected him. But I think both programs have been affected greatly by how they prepare, how they do things in the COVID environment. I know everybody's affected. They've probably been affected more. This is one of the true, pure, you know, academic, not there for NIL deal things. I mean, it's a different deal. Um, you also mentioned, I also believe that USF should be a consistent AAC power. What happened? And did Levitt get a raw deal? He did a great job launching what was an expansion team. He did. He started out in a trailer. They built something. I think that UCF's success has probably hurt them. It's definitely hurt them. They've got to recruit there. They've got to find some stability there. Jim did a good job. Jim ruffled a lot of feathers. And sustainability and recruiting was an issue. I think you got to remember something, that when Jim Levitt had success over there, it was a Big East program. And in a short time, Rock, even though the Big East was not a great league, it was still considered one of the, Miami was in it, Virginia Tech was in it. Remember, but it was a winnable. USF was really good in a league that, um, you know, if you won that league, it was considered something. You were one of the in the power conferences. USF since then is working out of a group of 5 level. So it's a completely different. They went from, okay, you're at, USF, and they were top. They were over ranked that year, but the bottom line is you're doing it in that league versus doing it in this league. It's a completely different job. So, and quite frankly, it's a harder job then. And Rock also, as I realized, Todd Graham ran out of gas at ASU, but is he looking better now? Herm's big accomplishment was beating D'Antonio in decline. So what? They've recruited well. They've under Herm, they've stepped out of line in some of the issues. I've never was not a big fan of Herm Edwards as a coach at any level, quite frankly. I call him Coach Soundbite. I think he's a guy that's got the media fooled a lot, but I don't think he's that good. And look, Todd's issues, sustainability there. Look, it's a program you can win at. I mean, they got a lot of resources. The facilities are good. You can win. And particularly with the down cycle of USC, they should have had more success. I don't know that I've never felt like Herm's a long range answer, and I don't think anybody associated with that program is a long range answer. So, but yet, some of the success has been magnified because people like Herm. Nice guy, we like him. So when you don't win, people just don't criticize you over there because, it's Arizona State. No big deal. You'll win. Oh, boy, that's great. I call it a Mike Leach syndrome. He gets out coached regularly at Texas Tech, at Washington State. Nobody cared because it's Washington State, Texas Tech. No big deal. Not supposed to win. But yet win one game and it's a surprise. Wow. Wow, look at what he did. It's like this, not the same level. Getting out coached consistently in the Pac 12 was something Mike Leach consistently had. Blowing like a 40-point lead in one quarter against UCLA, no one talks about it. Win one game you're not supposed to, and it's like, oh, this guy's great. Again, I can't really change public perception, nor do I care to. I just know that the way football people see things and the way media and fans see it are quite a bit different. But those are some really good thoughts. So we'll get to Rock's questions and more. We really did, but any more that he has or anyone else has, we will certainly get to it in the mailbag segment. The big storyline games this weekend. nationally or certainly in the SEC. Ole Miss, Alabama. Starts with Arkansas, um, Georgia. Really are a nice little appetizer game. They go up against Michigan, Wisconsin, Texas, TCU. I think that's a nice little early slate. Then we get into I call it, pardon me, I use Central Time Zone. I'm in Central Time Zone. 1:30 Central is Cincinnati, Notre Dame. And then we get into the Ole Miss, Alabama, 2:30 Central game. And then that's kind of the real feature. But there's some other good games we mentioned in the open window. But you got Oklahoma, Kansas State, Oregon, Stanford in the second window. You've got Baylor, Oklahoma State, which is a sneaky good game. Kind of a, oh no, I wasn't thinking about that. Oh yeah, we'll have a lot in our breakdowns. Remember, we break down all the college games inside the film room by conference. BC Clemson, suddenly more intriguing. Auburn LSU, and then Arizona State UCLA is intriguing. Fresno State Hawaii, yeah, 10 o'clock Central start. I'm curious to see. I was impressed. We'll get into the breakdown with UCLA beating Stanford in a bit. But Oregon gets Stanford. And we'll get into Oregon's game against Arizona and how that was maybe not the most impressive game, but took care of business. Real quick, too, and we'll circle back, but Rock mentions Jonathan Smith and the Beavs caught me napping. I got to tell you, Jonathan Smith has done a really good job at Oregon State. Now, they are a lower level developmental program. I mean, it is a tough place to recruit to. They completely develop guys, and they've got some good players, but they develop them. And so there's going to be gaps, meaning years in which they're not very good. But let me tell you what I see every time I watch one of Jonathan's teams. They play hard. They're physical. They're well coached. They get beat, but they can play you. Now, yeah, I get it. I could see how they catch a lot of people napping. They haven't won there since 1960. Jonathan's done a really good job there. No, it's not. It's not what Erickson had a nice little run where he recruited T.J. Hughes-Manzada and Chad Johnson, and they had some really good teams there. But what that program is and what they do, they develop it pretty nicely, and they're tough. They're a tough out. It's always been a challenge over there. Always been a big time challenge. Tommy Protho did a really good job. A few guys did good jobs in the past, but he's really, really good. Let's get into some of the games from this past weekend. I want to start with Oregon and take a look a little bit about what I saw in the game and take a look at some of the notes on what came out of it. When I look at it was interesting because I wanted to see how Oregon would deal with being a top team, playing focused, and Arizona hung around quite a bit into the third quarter. It was a lot closer than the score might indicate. I thought Arizona played with some confidence in the game defensively. Here's my concern about Oregon. They're a good team. They're probably the best team that the Pac-12 has to offer nationally. I also think they're pretty consistent. They play well at the line of scrimmage. I think they got a good back. They got the big win against Ohio State. We know that is something to do with Ohio State and what Ohio State is not. I don't think they've got enough in the passing game from the quarterback position. Anthony Brown is not the answer, and yet the young Thompson kid's probably not quite ready. But I thought that Arizona was able to run it on Oregon a little better than I thought. They ran it for 202 yards. overall, it wasn't a really good performance by Oregon. Offensively, they had the first 4 drives offensively ended in points. And so you look like, okay, that's a good start. They scored 24 points. There were 3 sustained touchdown drives that went 75 yards or more. The next 3 possessions resulted in 8 yards and 2 points. Why? Well, you start to see Arizona come after them with more pressure. They got a negative play by Anthony Brown, and it ended in a safety. So all of a sudden, it's 24-12 and a little bit of life, and it was almost as if when we got our 24 points, you could almost see the letdown in Oregon's team. Look, Brown made some good plays as he has. He's not a bad quarterback by any stretch, but I think there are limitations there. I thought he made some nice throws on the touchdown passes. Again, nothing like, well, you should bench him or what have you, but I think there are limitations. Limitations against elite teams. I don't see the vertical pass game threat. I thought they had Jalen Red on one, and they just couldn't make contact. I see stretches where this offense looks, very average. We'll see where it goes. I like the running back room. They only ran it for 18 times. And I thought Arizona did a good job of forcing the ball in the air. But Travis Dye is a big play waiting to happen. I think most of you know about C.J. Verdell, but you need to know that guy. Also, Seven McGee is involved in both the run and pass game, and I think you're a really good player. I think Oregon offensively is a really good quarterback away from being kind of really good. I think in terms of the pass catchers, the group I thought graded out pretty well. The tight ends continue to be feature players in this offense, especially in the red zone. Of the team's 10 grabs, 2 went for scores. Terrence Ferguson, Spencer Webb. I think it's a really solid group. Offensive line, the first quarter in this game, outstanding. They dominated up front. It had chunk play after chunk play. It looked like they were going to control this game. They struggled to get anything on in the second half. Why? Is it just more of a mental attitude, more of a malaise of, we got this? Third quarter safety came when Arizona defensive lineman Mo Diallo, who's, by the way, a one-time Oregon commitment, moved center Alex Forsythe. I mean, he basically pushed Alex Forsythe into Brown's lap. That's not a typical Alex Forsythe play. So, I just don't think they played with a great deal of intensity once they got up. Overall, defensively, they allowed Arizona to gain more than 400 yards, 435, I believe, from scrimmage. It's not good, not what you're looking for. One of the 5 interceptions even went for points. Bennett Williams maneuvered his way 63-yard score. Arizona won on way too many third and fourth downs. They were 7 for 15 on third down and 4 for 4 on fourth. So it was like the inability to maintain focus, play good technique in those third and fourth down situations defensively that were the biggest problem. You can't have that. That's what prevents you from being great. And you wonder, okay, is that a problem? Well, it could be. Playing bad technique in that situation could be a problem. Could be habit forming. Got to play with better focus there. That's something he's disappointing in. I did not think the defensive line played well. I think Arizona's pass protection is the worst in the Pac-12. Kayvon Thibodeau was available for like 10 or 12 plays. I think it was maybe 13. But he wasn't. He wasn't healthy, wasn't near 100%. I thought Arizona had some run game success. I mentioned over 200 yards, I think. Now, they ran it 50 times. Still, just not good enough there. They did not play sound gap control in that game. Very disappointing performance. Linebackers, not a good performance. I thought Noah Seal played well. He always plays, like it's his last game. But man, did they do a poor job with their run fits. They missed tackles quite a bit. Um, had a true freshman start at will. They had a walk on or another true freshman. It's not what you want, but man, um, they did not play well at the second level of their defense, first two levels. I thought the secondary was the better graded unit in this game on defense. They forced 5 turnovers, 4 came in the defensive backfield, basically playing good, tight coverage, staying in phase. Really did a solid job. The coverage wasn't great. They were beaten at times in soft coverage, but and we mentioned it in some of the third and fourth down issues. But I thought Williams and McKinley played really well, and I think has played pretty well thus far this year. So I thought special teams was pretty solid. Look, it's a win, you move on, but Arizona, you got to play better. I mean, that performance is not good enough to beat Stanford, and I don't expect them to play the same way. I think they're going to play with more intensity. Tough to turn it on and off. I get it. It's tough to be at your absolute best. But man, you've got to play consistent ball. You got to play consistent technique. You got to play with consistent focus if you're going to be great. And to me, that's what separates the elites from the goods to really goods. The goods to really goods, they look elite at certain point in times during the year that says that team could go to the playoffs, do damage in the playoffs, but they don't do it consistently. Therefore, they never get the chance. Or when they get the chance, they face adversity, that they just can't deal with. Arizona may have found its quarterback. Jordan McLeod is the guy right now. He's the transfer from USF. Rock mentioned about USF. Speaking of him, and he's probably going to be the guy going forward. Not that I'm doing cartwheels, but the guy was pretty effective. He was 21 to 35, 233 yards passing, touchdown pass of plus 64 yards on the ground. Arizona's offense has not looked as settled as it did Saturday. I thought that was a really good performance. In that it seemed a little bit more pace, a little bit more crisp, better than it looked under Will Plummer and Gunnar Cruz. I don't know how many plays they ran, but they called a lot of different looking plays, a lot of things that were very simplified, but he did a really good job. Going forward, it's going to be a different challenge. Rushing attack, as I mentioned, was pretty good. The extra boost from the running game achieves balance that they needed. I thought the offensive line stepped up, as we mentioned. And part of that is Oregon didn't play well. Intensity level, focus. Look, I think that in a game that's really important and it matters, I think Oregon plays better. They didn't play well, but that's part of, they did a good job. I thought the defense for Arizona had a mixed performance. I thought they really struggled in pass coverage. Don Brown is got his hands full. Not a lot of talent there. So they're going to have to recalibrate going forward. But we'll take a look at it. Up next, UCLA Stanford. But I want to address something. Our good friend Jake John just says, I know Kayvon Thibodeau has battled injuries this year, but even when he's full go, it seems like he's disappeared for chunks of games, and then he'll make a highlight play. Where do you think this narrative come from that he's a potential number one draft pick? Feels like similar situation. Am I way off? I think you're off in that he hadn't been healthy at all this year. So the whole, even when he's been healthy, he hadn't been healthy at all this year. And I didn't see quite the plus. First of all, they say Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney's been not a good player in the NFL. Jadeveon Clowney's been great. Jadeveon Clowney was mislabeled as this great pass rusher. Jadeveon Clowney, Jake, is this big, long, strong defensive lineman that can push the pocket. And because he doesn't give great sack numbers, he's a overrated? Well, he's a difference maker and has been a difference maker in the NFL. I mean, he has been. Now he's battled a bunch of injuries. But when that guy's been healthy, that guy is graded out what we call blue grade or high red grade most of his career. Now, it hasn't been consistent because of the injuries. No question about that. But the guy is a really good player. I think Kayvon's an outstanding talent. Here's the thing I'm going to, and there's different players, okay? But Kayvon is got better pass rush skills than Clowney, but he's a guy that's got great versatility, and I think he's got a good motor. I would say be careful because remember, don't take shots at people. I'm not going to mention any names, but remember the whole narrative about how bad Myles Garrett is? Oh, he took plays off at A&M. And he just the guy played with a high ankle sprain the entire season. And yeah, that looks like you're taking plays off. Myles Garrett didn't take plays off. He played when he probably shouldn't have played, but he absolutely couldn't keep him off the field type of guy. Guy's a great, emphasis on capital G, great player in the NFL. I think Kayvon's fine. First of all, the other thing is, where is he the number one pick? No one has decided that matters who the number one pick in the draft is going to be. So if you're listening to these people that tell you this is, you won't find on LandryFootball.com, here's the number one pick. Here's the mock draft. Those people don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how to evaluate, and they just gather information. They'll throw names out, all of this, this guy's going to move Spencer Rattler down the draft board. They're moving up. There's no such thing in real scouting football in the NFL. You evaluate players, and you stack your board once you get all the information, all the film work done. That's when you stack the board. This whole Harry High School amateur, online hot take world of this guy's the number one pick. No, he's dropped. He's now number 10. That has nothing to do with reality. So if you buy into that, then, which I don't think you do, Jake, but you're like anybody else. Hey, who are they talking about? Don't buy into that. You're not going to hear me say, it's just one of those things. And again, I don't mean you bring up I'm glad you bring it up, Jake, because it's one of those things like it's not fantasy football. It's a process. The draft is not a game. It's a process. And Jake, Rock, I know both of you guys and know that. And not just from me, you're bright enough that, but in talking, it's a process. I do think Kayvon Thibodeaux, is he overrated? Probably. Who's not overrated? Everybody's is the greatest ever now. It's kind of like teams. Like I was having a conversation about Arkansas, and they're the flavor now. Arkansas is really good. What he's done is really good. Now everybody is down on Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher can't coach because he makes $9 million a year and he lost to Arkansas. Doesn't mean Arkansas's program is as good as A&M's. This year's Arkansas team is better. And at Arkansas, I think they'll lose to Georgia this week. Maybe lose to Ole Miss. We'll see. Alabama. Then what are the people going to say? Oh, they were overrated. Well, those are the same people that are saying, well, you know what? Arkansas may be the next great thing. They may challenge Alabama. They may do this. Well, my goodness, if you say somebody is garbage one week and then you say they're the greatest thing ever the next week, well, that's the world that we live in that's so inaccurate. But, Jake, you're right on it. And I think that Kayvon is probably overrated to say don't know who the number one guy is going to be. I don't know who the number one guy is going to be. There are a number of guys that are good, but you know the quarterback theory. We'll get into that. That is a process as we go forward. So thank you on that. UCLA got it done 35-24 over Stanford. Good win, a really good win. I think it's interesting. He's a Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a very functional quarterback. That's athletic. He makes plays. Um, but from a decision-making standpoint, from a passing standpoint, um, those things are often leave something to be desired. Um, I think that in this game, I thought he did a pretty good job moving the team, leading the team. It's about putting four good quarters together. I think he's a guy that you can really implement in the run game. But boy, some of the RPO stuff is really, really good with him. Charbonnet got a lot of snaps and a lot of reps, a lot of carries, and boy, did he do a really good job. Britton Brown was also effective in a secondary role. Again, you remember him from the LSU game. Really did a good job. If I look at the receivers and tight ends, I thought that the play there was pretty good in this game. I thought that the speed, Kyle Phillips, I thought was impressive. I don't think they respected it enough. Um, I thought he played well. I thought he really challenged Stanford secondary. I tell you who um, got it going a little bit this week and did not play well last week against Fresno State is Greg Dulcich, the outstanding tight end. That there again, that's a guy I can remember. Really good player, dominant against LSU, and then disappeared against Fresno State. And you kind of consistency, and again, a lot of this, players play uneven games and matchups and styles. Again, people overreact to one moment, which is why, again, as coaches and scouts, you tend to learn to be kind of a little bit more. Yeah, it was good, but there are things there that weren't so good, and oh yeah, it was really bad, but things weren't quite as bad, and there's some good things there. A little bit more even keeled. I did like what I saw from Cam Brown, Josiah Norwood, but again, a lot of what I see is I want to see more consistency. Offensive line, a mixed bag for the offensive line. Marazzo got hurt. And I thought he really moved pretty well, better than he did against Fresno State. Although still some issues with bull rushes. Duke Clemens filled in for him, had one bad snap, and then a few missteps. Antonio Maffa was really good in the run game, and he really, I think, can handle more reps. Really, really good. He and Paul Gratton provide two good road grading guards that they hadn't had in a while. That's the biggest thing, maybe the least talked about turnaround for. I think this UCLA team is still really good. And I know getting consistency and losing the game like they did late, those are all issues, but I think they're still pretty good. Sean Ryan did a really good job at left tackle. It was admirable there, sliding into on the right side more than a few times. Alex Anderson was solid. As a group, they allowed more pressures than you'd like to see, but overall, not bad. Offensive scheme, game plan, really good. Uh, the middle stages of the game, they probably got away from the run a little bit too much. Had that going, but they saw some things, and some of the reads took them elsewhere. Defensive line, I thought Otito Ogobana got in there, made some plays, no limitations after leaving the game due to some injuries at Fresno State. Mitchell Good was back, looked really good. Wasn't a dominant player, but I thought played pretty well against the run, getting off blocks, and I thought he did a good job. The pass rush, the linebackers, Carl Jones. Carl Jones is really, really playing well. He is looking like a really good player. Caleb Johnson played very well. Jordan Markeith, really. I thought the entire linebackers graded out well. Probably the best graded unit of the entire team. And really, the secondary didn't play bad, but they had a couple of breakdowns. Had two deep passes for Stanford. Safeties were not in quite enough depth. Quantrez Knight was constantly around the ball. Like what I'm seeing out of Devin Kirkwood. So I thought they really had a good game plan. I thought they gave Stanford some issue. For Stanford, had only one explosive gain. That was a quarterback run. Um, the third downs, UCLA was much better on third downs. You look at third down efficiency offensively and defensively, and that's going to tell you an awful lot, folks. If you're giving up defensively 50% third down effectiveness, but only getting like 35, 36, it's a big factor. And it was a big factor in this game, probably one of the biggest. Now, why did that occur and what contributed to that were some of the things we go into. But that's it. UCLA entered inside Stanford's 24 times, coming away with 2 goal line scores on Dorian Thompson quarterback keeper runs. Not one trip in the red zone. Stanford was 9 for 11 on red zone touchdown attempts. UCLA kept them out of the red zone, a big issue there. UCLA had long scoring drives. They kept that Stanford defense on the field, wore them down. That was it. Utah, wasn't a pretty game for them. A lot of things to work on. They've had a lot of issues there. They're not running the football as well as they have. Now, this is another example of a really good team, a very well-coached team, Utah. Good friend Rock and I think Jake both are I'm starting to think, Rock and Jake are maybe the same guy. They sound so right. Correct me. I'm sure I'm wrong there. But they're both very, very bright guys. They're very familiar as they are with a lot of programs around the country. Very, very bright fans and aficionados of the game of college football of Wisconsin and how consistent and some of the developmental programs. Utah is that program out west. It's just not been a real good year. And just like Wisconsin can't run the football, Utah can't run it this year. And that's part of not every year's going to be the same. It's just, can you figure it out? Can you get it fixed? Can you adapt? This is an issue. Outside of TJ Pleasure, the running back room was not very good. Curry and Thomas and Bernard, they're fumbling the football. 2 turnovers. When do you see that out of Utah? In fact, it's not a good year for developmental for some. Kentucky's turning the football over. That's another developmental program that does all the little things well. Just like Wisconsin, just like Utah. I know Kentucky hasn't had the losses that Wisconsin has, but yet, pardon me, Utah and Wisconsin have. They've not been playing the clean type of ball that they normally play. So, but they got a win here. I thought Pledger was good. When they held on to the football, there's 7 turnovers. The defense, I thought, played its best game. Defense was magnificent. But again, against a Washington State team that's not very good. Nefi Sewell was sidelined by an injury, the junior linebacker. Kareem Reed, a walk-on linebacker, came in, played pretty well. And again, this is an example that they just don't. If you don't do all the little things well as a developmental program, you struggle, and they have. Washington State's just not really good, and they were very, very fortunate that they played a Washington State team that's not really good because I don't know. That doesn't look like this is going to be a Utah team that's going to be able to win consistently against Pac-12 competition this year. They will get better as the year goes along, but I don't know if they're going to be good enough to win and on a consistent level. I thought Ron Stone played well for Washington State. I thought Willie Taylor, both of those edge guys did. I thought the Willbacker, Jahan Woods, played well. I thought George Hicks did a decent job offensively. McIntosh graded out well at running back. He's getting some snaps away from board. Yeah, I thought the left tackle, Liam Ryan, did a good job. Garantano wasn't great. Yeah, that's Jared Garantano from Tennessee, but not much there. Washington beat Cal in a 31-24 matchup. Dylan Morris is improving. Wasn't pressing. He's very patient against Cal's defense. I thought he's very efficient in the first half, 11 for 14, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns. Problem came in the second half. It was a little bit more tight. You saw Cal threw some different looks at him, and he wasn't as comfortable. That was a big part of it. So getting him comfortable is the key. Getting the young Hewitt kid ready is probably where their future is going to be, but I don't know how far they take it this year. Running back Sean McGrew, Kamari Pleasant, Cameron Davis did pretty good jobs. I thought the protections were solid. Um, you know, um, I think the catch and run abilities. Um, Devin Culp is, he had some drops thus far this year, but I thought he played better for Cade Otton and Jack Westover. Offensive line is the biggest concern and head scratcher to me. There's some talent there, and they're not playing well. They got very little push against Cal's front four. There were free runners coming in the pass game. Defensive line, I thought the group was adequate. Garbers was able to exploit their lack of speed and athleticism, though. I want to see a little bit more of Carson Bruner, but they need to get healthy there. Ulafoshu and Hamuli and Tafisi are Hulafushu is solid, but you could see he's not healthy. Jackson Sherman was okay. They need to get healthier there. Kyle Gordon. Kyle Gordon was a really good player. He got one of my game balls this week. He was all around the football, had 2 picks, was just really, really good. Without McDuffie and Powell in the lineup, thought he was really good. So I thought defensively they called a pretty good game. I thought offensively it was a really solid game. I didn't think Cal had enough answers. Again, this is another developmental team. I think Cal really coaches up the defense well, but they don't have quite as many playmakers. So even the best coaching, if you don't have guys that can make the type of plays that you need, it's not quite as good. So Cal, it was tale of two halves. They gave up some chunk plays. We mentioned Delvin Cook. Offense, I thought Garbers has been his best over the last 3 games, but there's some limitations there. They in the passing game didn't have a drive. They had a drive down to I think the 6 or 7 yard line. Then they get sacks. Damian Moore gets stopped for loss. Garbers, struggled there. So this Cal team's not quite as good. Rock mentioned about Oregon State and USC. Let's get into that game a little bit. It's just historical in that it's the first win in the 24-game losing streak in the LA Coliseum. But they dominated the game, and that's the story, and it's probably what Rock was referring to. You see this and you say, and rightly so, man, bunch of 4- and 5-star players, and what did they do? They dominated in the trenches. Okay. They racked up 320 yards on the ground. They protected Chance Nolan, 0 sacks given up, no quarterback hurries. In fact, the Trojans only managed to record 1 tackle for loss. It was a stellar performance by an offensive line by Oregon State that's playing well, and I give it a lot of credit, but whoa, USC. Wow. Think about it. Let that sink in for a second. The running game for Oregon State was a success. B.J. Baylor put together a big-time game. He didn't get in the end zone. 23 carries, 158 yards. Very impressive. Could have broken the 200-yard mark if they had a holding penalty that didn't look like it was holding when I looked at it on tape. But Deshaun Fenwick, Trey Lowe, Coletto, they really ran the football. 9 different players carried the ball and all had success. Chance Nolan was only 15-19, but 15-19. Run the football as well as they did. Could be efficient in the passing game. 4 touchdowns. No problems moving against this USC secondary. It's not the result. If you sit there and look at the result, you say, wow, USC lost. What happened? How did it happen? When you watch the game, you look at the film, you say, whoa, whoa. You see that USC's kind of let go of the rope. And I give Oregon State all the credit, but this is not what you really expect out of USC. The receiver numbers, the catch distribution was interesting. Tywan Lindsey, Trayshawn Harrison were responsible for a large majority of the targets and receptions. They were reliable, explosive, and I thought they did a good job connecting with Nolan. One of the more impressive offensive showing that I've seen out of Oregon State for a while. Made it look easy. The penalties. And keep in mind, this wasn't a clean game by Oregon State. Um, USC's offense against Oregon State's defense, most of it early on was penalty yards. There was a holding, defensive holding, a face mask, a couple of pass interference penalties. A couple of them were questionable, but some of them were real. It was USC getting cheap yards, penalty yards. I thought Oregon State made some quick adjustments, limited the flags, became a different game. They looked like they were always in control, and pass heavy offense, playing from behind, not going to run the football a lot. So the run defense prowess is a little bit overrated, but still they held them to 76 rushing yards. Impressive. So really, really good job there. Really good coaching job, USC. Let's talk about that for a second. The whole defense got whooped. The run defense got gashed. This is a pretty good Oregon State running team. Okay, so that's something you need to know. Take something out of Oregon State that you didn't know. They have a good run design. They run it well, and they've got a good offensive line. But man, did this run defense get moving off the ball. Awful. It was, for the most part, this USC team's tackled pretty well. But this was an awful performance tackling football. 12 missed tackles that I counted, 6 defenders that just did an awful job of taking poor angles. Very, very bad job. The linebacking core was specifically bad. Goforth and Munga really missed a bunch of tackles. Offensively, USC dropped the football left and right. London had one, Washington had one. Now they're not playing well around the quarterback. They don't have any real toughness to it. Just not real impressed with their attitude, with their focus, their energy level. One of the only bright spots I saw for USC offensively was Keontae Ingram. He ran hard. He tried hard. They didn't get a whole lot. They didn't stay committed to it. They're too far down behind. Drake London had the drop, but boy, he's a talent. Man, he had 10 receptions, 165 yards. And, he's a big-time player. He's a big-time player. Jalen Smith deserves some recognition. The freshman did a pretty nice job. Michael Trigg did a pretty nice job offensively. Just a really bad night overall for USC on all 3 levels. They faced number 3rd and 4s and really had bad play design, played bad execution. Is really, really bad performance that you want to forget if you're USC, but yet you got to really build on the attitude, the effort. For Arizona State, they clobbered a Colorado team 35-13. They did what they needed to do. It was a bounce-back game, frustrating loss to BYU last week. They cut down on the penalties. That was the biggest problem they had against BYU. They committed 7 total penalties. None of them significantly hurt them in this game in terms of the outcome, but it's still a problem. I thought the offense was a little bit sharper, put up 435 yards. They didn't surrender a sack or commit a turnover. They converted on all 4 of their red zone chances into touchdowns. I thought Jaden Daniels played better. Thought he was efficient with his legs and decision-making. They did struggle to get a run game going. That was a problem. White was not able to get unleashed very much. Nada, I thought, did some good things. They tried to get him some reps. He's the freshman back that's pretty good. Um, they got the freshman receiver Johnny Wilson involved in the game early. Finished with 4 catches, played pretty well. It was the offensive line was up and down. The right side had issues protecting Daniels early. Wasn't real effective in the run game blocking. Defensively, started 3 linebackers that had productive games into the top 3 tacklers. Robertson, Butler played well. Sully did some good things. One takeaway, they had a pass interference call. Special teams didn't have any big miscues. It's a solid game for Arizona State. Cleaner game. Not overly impressive. Colorado's got some issues. I did think Fontenot played pretty well. Um, but they outside of maybe a couple of backs that could do things in stretches, they don't have a whole lot. Thought Mekhi Blackman played pretty well on defense. Cole Becker had a 46-yard field goal and did a pretty nice job. But overall, was just a solid performance. Where do things stand right now in terms of players of the week? Made some notes here. I want to make sure I don't forget anybody. B.J. Baylor, Oregon State, deserves a game ball. Bennett Williams, the safety from Oregon, played well in the loss. I mentioned him. And I thought Kyle Phillips, probably of UCLA, did the best job. I would say that the offensive line award, I would say Nathan Eldridge, the center from Oregon State, was the best. I thought the freshman from Oregon, the defensive end, Van Fillinger, did a really good job. And I thought the linebacker, Karan Reed, that I mentioned, did a really nice job. So anyway, those are my thoughts there. Where does this conference lean right now in terms of this week's action? First of all, looking kind of how they rank and how I would stack them up in terms of film grades. Oregon is certainly the team to beat. It's certainly the best team. The question is how much of a threat they are in a deep playoff run. USC's talented. USC's a better team. There's nobody in the South that's really exciting. And in the West, Washington's not what some people thought they would be due to the quarterback situation right now. And Stanford's good, but nothing special. I just think it's Oregon and everybody else, and I don't see Oregon quite to the level that I see in Alabama, Georgia. But quite frankly, I don't see anybody. I certainly can't, and we'll talk about them next hour in Big 12 football, Oklahoma, or quite frankly, Oregon, they need bet. Certainly they beat Ohio State, but they're kind of in that same cluster. So that's kind of where we see it. Washington State doesn't look good. They look like the worst in the North. Arizona is the worst team in the entire league. Answer question before we go out. Rock says, based on the direction of the show went. Sorry about that. Could Mel Kiper run an NFL team effectively? I realize you have to be polite, but I don't and never was a fan. Mel's not a scout. Mel has never evaluated players. He has no experience in football coaching or scouting. No, but there are a lot of non-football people getting involved today. I'm old school. It's a difference between getting on the phone and getting other people's opinion and putting it off as your own and take a conglomeration of thoughts and making it, here's how I rank my big board or this or that. It's quite a bit different than when you have to evaluate players and do it yourself. We see that with Mayock, and Mayock at least played the game. Mayock had a much better eye for understanding football, and he worked harder at it. He's struggling right now. And I'm not talking about that the Raiders are struggling because they're playing pretty well, and I think John's got that team playing hard and well. But look at all the mistakes that they've made in overdrafting guys, because a lot of it is Mike's not getting – when you're a TV guy and you can get people to help you, to guide you, you can come out and kind of sound smart. When you got to go in and you got to make those decisions, what's best for you? and how do you evaluate it without getting help from somebody else, it's a completely different ball game. And I think we're seeing that. So no, I'm not a believer that guys like that. I don't like telling people they can't do this, they can't do that. But here's my answer to the question is, look, um, if I want a medical opinion, I'm going to a doctor. If I want a legal opinion, I'm going to go to a lawyer. If I want accounting advice, I'm going to go to an accountant. Um, I want people that are experienced in doing the job. And doing TV is not doing the job. And yet we get, whether it's these recruiting analysts or draft analysts that have never scouted and have never run a draft, have never put a draft board together, have never scouted. How can you be an expert in something you've never done? A talking head with an opinion, anybody can do that. And certainly, I think those guys are more what I would call beat writers. You know how you want to know what goes on with the Packers or the Chiefs or whatever. There's somebody that's an embedded reporter that's there and studies the topic. They may not know how to evaluate, but they're embedded with the team or the topic, and they can get the information. These guys are draft reporters. They gather information. It's a lot different than saying, "Oh yeah, I like watch this guy, Mike or Mel or whatever. He can do this and that." And then you go in and all of a sudden you start to see things with your ears. You got to go in with a blank slate and be able to know and let the player grade himself. If you know how to evaluate and what to look for, there's a completely different world. So that's a way too long answer to your question, my friend. But I appreciate Rock. I appreciate Jake joining us. We encourage all of you to join us each and every week for Pac-12 football and beyond during this hour. And Big 12 football and beyond is coming up next. Give me about 5-6 minutes, and we'll be on, talk a little Big 12 football and beyond. So we'll take your questions, not just in the league, but around college football, NFL, wherever you want to go. We'll take you there. Check out LandryFootball.com. Join us there. Check out our great friends at BetDSI.com. New members get a 100% bonus match using the promo code LANDRY100. That's more than double your money to start winning today. That's BetDSI, promo code Landry100. So check them out today. Check out LandryFootball.com. Sign up. Subscribe to Pac-12 Football and Beyond, Big 12 Football and Beyond, Landry Football Podcast. Join us here on Twitch as well. Talk to you next time, everybody.